Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I've been wanting to film this video for so long, but life has been a little bit crazy, and so I'm finally getting time to sit down on my sofa and have a little chat with you all. So this is all about, for those of you that are either new yoga teachers or maybe you are an aspiring yoga teacher. And I get asked for tips around teaching yoga all the time. So I thought I would just share some of those tips. So this is for those of you that have maybe just completed your 200 hours and you kind of don't really know where to go next and what to do. It's a bit daunting in the world of yoga sometimes. You know, it is a saturated market. It is. There are many, many yoga teachers out there all doing amazing things. But that doesn't mean to say that your amazingness can't fit in as well. It's just about finding your way in and finding your niche and just, I guess, being you, and then you will attract people to you. So I have a few little tips that will hopefully see you through and hopefully kind of get you on the right path. Loads of you asked me about my yoga journey, where I trained and things like that, and I am going to be filming an updated version of my yoga journey very soon for you. But there is already a video about my trainings which I'll link to below. So if you're interested in seeing where I trained, then you can look at that. That was only up until 2016, and there's been kind of new things since then. So I am going to do an updated version. So let's say that you've just finished your 200 hours and you really want to teach, and maybe you weren't sure about teaching beforehand. Like a lot of us, we go into our training thinking this is just to kind of like, you know, help me on my personal journey, and then we come out having learned so much and feel so passionate and so excited that we want to share it. But obviously, especially in London, and I know that in like bigger cities around the world, it's really hard to get teaching places in studios. So there's kind of a few ways that you can go about it. The best way is to contact a studio and be asked if you can be put on the cover list. Now, obviously you'll probably still have to audition to go onto a cover list, but that's a really, really great way to then get to know teachers who also teach in the studios. And if you do a really great job at covering their class, then you might become kind of their regular cover teacher, which is a really great thing. For me, I know that I like to try and use the same people as much as possible to teach my class, so that those students that are regular to my class, kind of they know if I'm not there that they're in kind of good hands. So I recommend getting in touch with the studios that you like, going in, like do their classes, talk to the people on the front desk, kind of get a feel for the place. You know, meeting someone face to face really goes a long way, especially when we're in a community, when we're in a job that involves like FaceTime and, you know, being personable and having connection. It's really nice to actually go in and make yourself known. So I would really make the time to do that. The other thing that you could do, if you have teachers that you already go to the classes of, or that you really admire, maybe you could reach out to them and ask if they ever need assistance at events and in their classes. A lot of people won't have assistance in group classes, but I know that for me, when I teach bigger events, it's really nice to have people that can kind of walk around the room and give little assists and adjustments to the people taking the class. So it's always worth doing. And I think the important thing to remember is not to get downhearted if someone turns around and says, you know, like, I'm really sorry, but I'm not looking for anyone at the moment, or a studio says, we're not looking for anyone, because it's all about making connections. And yes, it's not going to be a quick, hard and fast, you know, answer, but it will in time. The more connections that you make and the more people that you chat to, the more, you know, the more you get out there, then the more opportunities you are going to have. The other thing that you can do if you really just want to get in there with your teaching, which is a really great thing to do because it's important to kind of like get in there with teaching as soon as possible. You could maybe do some charity classes, community classes. There's so many places around that would love to have yoga classes, and they can't afford to have teachers to pay them, but it's a great way to get exposure, and it's a great way just to build your confidence and to just get out there and teach. So that's a really good one. And then why not set up a group class with your friends? Another really great way of just kind of using all the skills and the tools that you've learned and kind of starting those baby steps towards evolving as a teacher. Your teaching will change. If I were to look back now and if someone had videoed the class, the first class that I ever taught, I probably wouldn't even recognize the teacher. And that doesn't mean to say that I was a bad teacher then. I was just new and I I can see that I was really holding on to a lot of the things that I had learned in that 200 hours. And again, that is no bad thing, but in time you learn to kind of let go of all the little things that you learned that maybe didn't resonate with you so much, because you'll start to study by yourself. You'll do your own research. Maybe you'll go on to do other trainings. And for me, it's all about kind of like taking in really what resonates with me, what makes me feel alive, what I feel is important for my students to know, and going with that and really finding my voice and finding my personality, which of course at the start, I was unable to do. You know, I had like a little note underneath my mat that was reminding me of the poses that I was going to teach. The last thing I was thinking about is how to come across as like a charismatic person. So it's really nerve-wracking, you know, when you first go into it, if you're not used to being in front of people. You know, I had quite a few friends who were on my course who were kind of drama students, or they were used to talking in front of people. And so to them, it kind of felt like second nature, just stepping in front of a group full of people. But to some of us, it didn't necessarily feel like that. Whereas for me now, I love it. Like, I feel alive when I walk in front of a classroom full of students. It's where I want to be. It's what I love doing. But, you know, that does take a little bit of time. I would also recommend not having... I think it's good to plan classes. If you're a planner, it's good to sequence if you want to sequence. But try not to set yourself up where it's so rigid that then if maybe you go too quickly through your flow, or you miss a pose out, or maybe there's somebody with an injury, or maybe you've got a pregnant person, maybe you've got different levels. You don't want to have something so rigid in your mind that you can't adapt it. And that's probably what I actually learned in my very first lesson, is that I had this clear idea of what I wanted to teach. And I got there and I genuinely had 2 injured people, a pregnant lady, a couple of beginners, one person who'd never done yoga before, and then a couple of quite advanced people. And trying to work with all of those things when I had set such a rigid structure for my class was actually quite tricky. So when you're new to teaching and you want to be taking on kind of all levels classes and things like that, then you just want to kind of open yourself up to just let go, and it's fine if you make mistakes. I mess my left and right up all the time, and it's really important to know that, you know, for me, I know that I'll be doing that. It doesn't matter how long I teach for. There will always be days where I get things mixed up, and that's okay. And as long as you don't make a big deal out of it, you know, sometimes I'll laugh about it. Sometimes I won't even kind of make a point of saying like, oh, look what I did it wrong. I'll just correct myself and keep going. And half the time, you know, the people that are flowing with you, that are moving with you, won't even notice. And if they do, then it will be one person within a bigger handful. And really, in the grand scheme of things, as long as you're doing what works for you and you maybe corrected yourself in the way that you needed to, then it doesn't really matter what anybody else on the mat thinks. One of the things I always say to people is that as long as you are teaching from the heart and you're teaching from a place of, you know, goodness, kindness, and passion, then what you put out there will ultimately bring in the kind of people that you want to be on the mat with you. You know, I have the most incredible people come to my classes and come to my retreats, and it's funny because when I first started running retreats, a couple of people said to me, oh, you know, you want to be careful, like sometimes, you know, you'll get, you know, an awkward person. I honestly, hand on heart, can say that I have had the most incredible people on all of my retreats, and I like to think that that comes down to the kind of person that I am and what it is that I put out there, and, you know, the way that we attract other people. At least I really hope it is. And, you know, if it's just luck of the draw, then I am a very lucky person. But as a teacher, I have had just, yeah, really, really wonderful students. A very, very important tip is knowing when to say, I don't know. Now, as yoga teachers, and I know that PTs get this a lot of people assume that you know everything like a GP or a surgeon when it comes to the human body. And now for me, anatomy is super important. And I would recommend that if you've done a 200 hours that didn't include much anatomy, because sadly there are a lot of them out there, then I recommend really getting a little bit more experience when it comes to the human body and just learning kind of at the basic the most basic level, like know all of your muscles, know the bones, and know the joints, because it's important. We're working with physical beings, people that are moving on mats. However, that doesn't mean to say that you can't say, I don't know, to an answer. People come to me all the time with injuries at the start of class, and really what I can say to them is, if it feels okay, you go there. If it doesn't, then pull back. I can help modify, but ultimately, like, I'm not a doctor and I can't prescribe you, or I'm not a physio and I can't prescribe you some kind of exercise or some kind of healing technique to make everything better again. And even when it comes to not just the anatomy and not injury, but when it comes to people just asking questions, I don't know, maybe someone might ask you about the chakras and you don't know about them. Just say, I don't actually know the answer to that, but what I will do is that I will go home and I'll read up on it, and next week when you come to class, I'll have an answer for you. Like, how much more empowering is that as a person to be able to say, look, I don't know now, but I'm willing to look into it and to, you know, learn myself so that I can help educate you. And I think that that's a really nice thing, and it can be quite scary the first time you turn around and you say, like, oh, I don't know. But it's really important that we do that, and that then we are still giving from a place of authenticity and truth. And my final tip for those of you that are new teachers is to never lose sight of your own practice. And I've seen it so many times. And it's quite sad because people, you know, yoga is quite hard. Like I said, it's a saturated market. It's quite hard to earn loads and loads of money from teaching unless you're going to teach sort of crazy amounts every single day and burn out. And that happens. And I think that a lot of the time people teach so much they don't actually even have time to get on the mat themselves and really evolve their own self-practice. But I can tell you that the way that I sequence, the way that I teach, it all comes from having a strong self-practice still and working on myself, and both from a mental point of view and from a physical point of view. It really, it harnesses like what I believe in and what I want to put out there, because it's what I love doing. And so I would just recommend to like really never lose sight of that. And sure, there's going to be days and weeks where, you know, you are too busy and you haven't had moments on your mat, but always just come back to it. Always come back to you on the mat, because that's where it all began. That's where your passion came from. Your want to teach came from the fact that you loved doing yoga on your mat. And I think it's really important to never lose sight of that as a yoga teacher, and to never stop learning. Never ever stop learning, because there is so much out there to learn from the historic side of yoga and the philosophy, but there's also so much to learn in terms of the way the human body works and the forward-thinking side of science and anatomy. So yes, we're never gonna maybe know it all, but it's really important to kind of keep broadening your mind and your views and your opinions on yoga in this modern day. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you got a few little tips and tricks out of this video. If you have anything else that you want to share or comment below, then please do. I would love to hear from you, and I will see you again very soon. Bye bye.